Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei. I'm so excited to paint with you today. So today we're going to be doing another page in our watercolor journals. I have my page split into half, so I'm going to be actually doing two different designs. And today I'm going to focus on just some ink and wash, kind of doodles and watercolor that you could use for cards, or mostly for cards is where I would think to put these, but you could do them for anything or just practice in your watercolor journal. So we're using a 6x9 Bao watercolor journal. That's what I'm using. Whatever you have is great. Mine's 100% cotton, 140-pound cold press. I have my core watercolor paints, QOR by Golden. This is my 24 color palette, which I love. I have a size 10 and a size 3 round watercolor brush. And then last but not least, today for my ink, I have a Lamy pen. This has waterproof ink in it. So Lamy pens, it's a fountain pen. It doesn't normally come with waterproof ink in it. Just be careful of that. I actually bought, because of some people who commented, bought a converter that goes in the pen that you can then fill with any type of ink you want. And I chose this platinum carbon ink, which is waterproof. So that's what's in my pen now. All right, so let's get started. I think we're going to do flowers and hearts, two different designs, and keep it easy breezy, something fun, illustrative, and not too much pressure. I know we did landscape for the last one, and we kind of bounce all over the place, and that's what I love about my journal. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. So for the first one, I'm going to put down a layer of hearts, and I'm going to use my Alizarin Crimson for this, but I want you to remember one color has lots of different shades in it or values where we can get really, really light red, pink color, and a much darker red color. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use one color for this whole thing. So let's paint some hearts. I shouldn't have started on this side. I should have started over here, because now this is going to be wet when I start to work over here. It's all right. I'll just have to dry it in between. So I'm not going to get too caught up in having perfect hearts. I am just going to paint them the best they can. If they're a little wobbly or wonky, I'm not going to worry about it. And I am going to angle some of them kind of like so, every which way. Maybe we'll try to make some. I feel like everybody when you draw hearts, it's one of those shapes. You have a specific kind of look and feel to your heart. They're either really fat or really thin, kind of tall and stretched. Like everybody has their natural way of doing it. So I'm going to try to make mine a little bit fatter and a few a little bit thinner. So I'm going to put a bunch of these on, but then I'm going to overlap a bunch as well, using the transparency of my watercolor. But I'm going to have to wait till some layers dry first, I think, to get that. So like this one is a little crooked. Let's do like a really light one in here. They're almost touching, not quite. All right, so I'm going to let these dry. You can see I have a couple of different shades or values. I'm trying to think what I'm going to do with the ink on this one after I get done layering. Am I going to make it like a bush or tree of hearts? Or am I going to draw just ink hearts over top of it? I'm not sure, but let's let that one dry. Okay, moving to my other side while that dries, first layer, I am going to just do some circles, and then we're going to put some floral designs over top of them. But the circles, I want them to be kind of muted colors. All right, so I have some Dioxazine purple here. I have some raw sienna here, and I have some phthalo blue green shade. I'm going to take some of this raw sienna and add it to my purple. So this raw sienna is a yellow, a very muted yellowy color. and it's going to mute my purple quite a bit. And I'm going to do just a circle up here. Of that color and let it dry. I also have some, so I have some Phthalo blue green shade, which I'm also going to add some raw sienna to. So this yellow color. Not so much that this actually turns like super green, but it is going to mute this blue a little bit because this yellow has some red in it. It's a very natural tone. Anyway, so you can see it's muted the color, but has not made it super green. If I kept adding more, it definitely would get more of a green shade to it. And I'm going to do kind of a big circle down here. I'm using my size 10 brush right now. And I'm going to do the same with this. As I build some other shapes on top of this or more circles on top of this, we're going to overlap things. All right, so let's get to the raw sienna itself. I want to put a big raw sienna circle in here, yellowish circle, but these are so wet, so I'm going to let them dry and then come back. I hope this isn't too much bouncing back and forth for y'all, but this is how I work on a couple of things at one time. So these hearts are dry. So I'm going to go back in with my Alizarin Crimson, and we're going to start to layer. So when we layer, you can see this is transparent, so you're going to see this through that, so nothing is going to cover it up. And it's going to give that look of like sheer light layering and transparency, which I love. I think is going to be great. So you can see they overlap, but you can kind of still see them through. And of course you can play with the value and of the paint itself. So I can make it darker. I can put like a really dark, much more red one in here, a lot less water, a lot more paint. It's still going to be transparent, but less transparent. You can see here, you can still see that line through there, but this one pops more to the top than this one. As it dries, it's going to lighten a little bit. You'll be able to see it a little more without the reflection of the water. Well, that's an ugly heart. There we go. That's a little better. And let's do another one right here. Trying not to keep them all exactly the same size and the same direction. Some different angles. And I'm going to do one more. Here, I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. All right, we can let this dry again. Actually, let's just take a look at it really quick. I have this like line running through here that isn't broken in any way, and I don't like that. So I'm actually going to add one more small heart, small-ish, right here that connects this top and bottom here. If I wasn't rushing and I looked at it a little longer, I actually would have angled it probably this way instead of this way, because all of these are angled the same way. It's no big deal. You know what? Let's put one more small one right in here. A little darker than this one, a little lighter than this one. Beautiful. So as things are drying, you can see the layers kind of popping through there. This little heart, I'm going to get my smaller brush, has just the funkiest shape. I'm going to put a whole other layer on top of this heart just to change that shape. And let it dry one more time. I didn't quite finish the bottom of it. Okay, let's let those dry and jump back here to our circles. I'm going to use my heat tool. So this is just a heat tool I got off of Amazon, I think. Not very expensive at all, but these are great when you're just trying to get things to dry a little quicker. You're not working wet on wet or anything like that. You're not trying to wait for things to dry naturally because of some process. This is pretty much almost dry. I'm just going to bring it to the very end so I can add another layer. There we go, all done. All right, so let me get some fresh raw sienna here. We'll water this down a little bit so it's a little transparent, and I'm going to do a big circle. I think I'm going to have to make it a little bigger because I do want it to hit both of the other circles. And you can see the transparency. And as we overlap, it's going to create new colors. So you can see here, this is more of an orangey-ish color, and here this has a green tint to it as the yellow and the blue overlap. Okay, so 3 big circles. I'm going to take my smaller brush, and you know what? I'm going to add does this still have some blue on it? I'm going to add some smaller circles down here. I'm going to add a yellow one up here, and then I think I'm going to add the purple one. I'm going to let that dry, but we'll do a purple one slightly bigger than the other 2 over here. And I might do another, let's do a tiny, tiny purple one. Another tiny purple one here. And I'm going to let those dry. I'm going to throw a yellow or blue one over top. And then blue, I think I can do a blue one here, but it's time for that heat gun again because things need to dry a little more quickly. All right, so I have my blue circle up here, kind of getting out of control because I did it when it was still wet. So I'm just going to go around the whole thing, get those edges nice and crisp. And that's a much darker blue-green color. So you know what? Let's add another really dark small one down here just to give it a little balance. And I'm going to pick up some yellow to connect these. May have gotten a little too granular down here for the overall design, but this is fun. I like experimenting like this. These colors are really satisfying together to my brain. And I do want to add, let's lighten this blue a little bit more. Add one, right, maybe not that light. Over here. You could see half and half, and then one purple one kind of right here, where these all three combine. All right, so we're going to let this dry, and we're going to start to think about what we want to ink over top of it. And what we ink over top of it doesn't have to have anything to do with what's below it if you don't want to. They don't even have to interact. They can just be layered over top of each other. This is a cool, fun, layered design underneath, and you can put ink on top. So I'm going to think about that while I move over here to this one. And these are going to interact, I think. I got a water spot right here on one of my hearts. This brush is dry. Okay, so I could add just tiny little ink hearts. I really like this design. I almost don't want to add ink to it, but I'm going to because I told you I would. I'm going to move this over here so we could do like kind of springing up, just attaching the hearts, almost like a bouquet of balloons, if you will, like attaching all the hearts down to one central area. You know what, let's do that, and then we'll just put a bow down there or something like that. Or we could just layer hearts in ink over top of it, but I'm not gonna do that, I don't think. I think I'm just gonna do this, where I pretty much bring them all and a layer right over top. Some of them I'm going to go behind. I haven't really thought of rhyme or reason like why some go behind others. I'm just going to put a little kind of dot or dongle at the base. So there we go. We have a balloon bouquet of hearts. And if you wanted to get really crazy, you could outline some of them, or we could even just put on that very cheeky little highlight that you see when you draw a balloon. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It's a very illustrative kind of cliche. So if I had my heart balloon, pretend that was painted, like just drawing on a little cheeky highlight on the top. We could do that on a couple of them. Usually would leave it white on here, and that would kind of give it that look. But let's just do this. I'm just going to draw down here. A little bow to bring them all together. I think I'm going to leave it the way it is. I don't think I'm going to add the highlights. I kind of like the simplicity of it with the line and with the layering of the hearts. So hope you enjoy that choice that I'm going to make, but you don't have to make the same one. You can experiment and play as well. All right, let's go back over here. These folks dry. All right, for this one, I am just going to draw some flowers, like a bouquet of flowers over top. So a little bouquet of balloons over here. This is just going to have layered flowers over the top. They're going to have nothing to do with what's going on below them. I think I'm going to do a daisy. Yes, I'm going to start with the flower up here. I'm going to be offset a little bit. So I'm going to draw a little crinkly center like this. And then I'm going to draw you can hear my dog snoring. Just trying to remember to keep the petals somewhat the same length. Some might be a little bit longer, and daisy petals are very much kind of squared off at the end or a little ragged, and we can layer on top of each other, so some are overlapping here. I'm just going to scribble my way through the center. It's a very nice little daisy. So these pens have fine point and extra fine point. I think I'm going to get another extra fine point because fine point is actually, to me, the way the ink comes out of here is great. Unlike some other fine liners that I use, which they do a lot of skipping, this ink is very consistent. So I'm just adding some heavier lines here and there and in the center. And then trying to decide what other flower that I'm going to do. I could do another daisy. We could just do two lovely daisies over top of these. Let's draw a stem. And I could do another one like right here. Maybe a little smaller. Just keep it simple. I'm really afraid of making this one too big. I don't want them to overlap. So I'm trying to really define my boundaries here. Just out, little squiggle. The overall shape of the petal is narrower at the and a little thicker at the top, narrow at the center, but not by much. Just thickening up some lines, adding some texture towards the center. Even here I added like a couple of shorter petals, but they just overlap. So you're going to see the larger petals lines through the back. But I think that's fine. I think that looks interesting. And draw a stem this way as well. So we have two lovely flowers. We could add some leaves if we wanted to. I don't want to add too many. I'm going to add like a leaf almost on its side. Kind of thin, somewhat ragged leaves, keeping in line with the shape of our flower style. Here we go. And I think that is enough. There we go. And you could go back and give it a little bit and decide if you want to add more ink to darken some things. We could darken our stems a little, add a little texture, just so they show up a little more prominently on that background, but I don't think they need much. All right, I think I'm done. All right, this was fun, and these could both be definitely front of the card designs that you might want to put on top of a Valentine's Day card or just a thinking of you card for someone, whether you do them in your sketchbook or you go right to a watercolor card or you put them on small watercolor paper like this. Like I usually do a card where I'm putting it on watercolor paper like this, and then I'm affixing the watercolor paper to a blank card. Whatever way you want to do it. Thank you so much for joining me for another day in our watercolor journals. Don't forget to check out the description for links to supplies and materials. Like this video, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. Leave a comment. I love to hear them. And I'll see you for another watercolor journal page very soon.